From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision Bill Fisher. There's soon to be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher, our Captain Marvel, Net Flight trainee, Jennifer Scripchuk, and our Batman, master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission? To fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes and Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes and Training Podcast. I'm going to be one of the hosts for this episode. My name is Bill. Who else is hosting?
It's just Vicky.
Oh, it's never just
Vicky.
It's
this time.
We're honored to have you always, Miss Vicky. My personal goal is to try not to have to sleep in the bathtub after this episode. It would be a welcome relief, but we'll get there. So we have a guest. We do. We have a guest. He has a podcast. I love his podcast. It approaches racing from a different perspective every single time. And often from like the perspective of a human, which is very different from my perspective as the resident robot of our team. So I start to understand you humans and why you walk around with all this like flesh-filled water bag, but whatever. His co-host Seth is not able to come with us. He was on the last One Lap of America. He is also part of our series of GLTC drivers as he competes in his Miata, which may be changing, but I think, yes, Vicky's a fan of Miatas. So with that, I'd like to welcome Scott Robertson to the podcast. Welcome, Scott.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Scott.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Vicky may be bonding over Miata love. So prepare.
Yeah. I'll wax poetic about the first and second gen Miatas all day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, she, you know what NB stands for, Scott?
No big.
Not Bills.
Not Bills.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
I bought one and it's not Bills. Anyway.
That's because he couldn't get his head in it with a helmet.
My seat, the bottom of the exterior of my seat is touching my floor pan. Mm-hmm. And my helmet is still grazing the underside of the hardtop. I look like a clown getting in the car. It's terrible.
Bill gave up getting in the car.
Yeah.
He just doesn't. He just can't.
I wear a double X helmet.
It's a unicorn defined.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So it's kind of like, 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag, but whatever.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about yourself. Just a little summary of your family life, professional life.
Yeah. All right. My name is Scott. I like long walks on the beach and race cars.
I like margaritas, Copacabana.
I was born at a young age.
Oh, yeah. And I've got a 7-year-old son, Willem. I have a girlfriend named Becky Burton, who is also my crew chief for GLTC, and she has a Mazda 2 of her own that she is slowly turning into a Grid Life Sunday Cup car. Mm-hmm. And I am an ordained minister, but professionally I am a carpenter. So there you go.
That's art in itself right there.
It's a thing.
So Scott, we share the pleasures of having a mechanically inclined significant other. It's a wonderful thing. I highly recommend it.
Becky is also a carpenter, I should point out. She's
very nice.
Far more diverse than I am. I tend to be interior trim. She could actually build you a house.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. That is also why she is not here, is because she is currently sanding the floors on her 100-year-old house.
Oh, there's just something so satisfying about working with your hands.
There is.
There's well, yes, yeah. There's people that do, and there's people that don't. And I fall into the working with your hand style. But anyway, so how did you guys manage to get into racing?
That's a little long and convoluted, like most things in my life. My father, Bill, was kind of always into cars. He actually raced in the SCCA Bilstein Rabbit Cup that ran.
Rabbit Cup.
Mm-hmm, the
Volkswagen.
VW Rabbits.
Yeah.
And the series ran, I think, from 79 to like 84, maybe, but he competed from 79 to 82, 82 being the year I was born. And they traveled kind of all over the place. So that's kind of memory and passion, I think, kind of followed him wherever. So he owned a Chrysler dealership when I was elementary, middle, and high school. Kind of got into cars, but never in any like on track way. We had talked about doing the One Lap of America in 2002 in one of the country's first neon SRT4s. But Chrysler ended up stiffing us and we wouldn't have the car in time. And just kind of wanted to do the One Lap ever since. The One Lap was kind of I wouldn't say my introduction, but that was kind of what I wanted to do. And, life happens, and
as it does.
As time soldiers on. And eventually I wanted something that was mine and that I wouldn't be responsible to anyone else for. And that for me was racing. And so I have never kept track of how much I've spent on the car, which I highly recommend as a spiritual practice.
Much better than that.
Yeah. And it's been good. My first track day was in 2018 at the end of the year. And in the same Miata that I compete with, and just kind of been a long, slow spiral downhill ever since.
So what are your goals when it comes to racing, or are you just in it for the thrill of it?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, and we had Tiffany Kelly, and I've talked with other of my fellow GLTC and One Lap drivers, and some of them seem to have very clear goals. Like Tiffany wants to go be a professional driver. I don't think I'm particularly talented or maybe driven enough because of everything that comes along with being a professional driver, especially outside of driving. But I like to do well, and I like to improve, and I like to compete. So it's difficult because I'm also forced with the reality of the number of, as Adam Jabay calls them, assassins who drive in GLTC. And man, top 20 this year is hard. It is genuinely difficult. And I was at the first GLTC race fighting for last place, and I've never had more fun in my life.
There's not many soft spots, if any, in any of the races.
No, I spent 2 winters ago, spent a lot of time and money case swapping my car to be at the same part of the field the next year. And then this year came out, and everyone's swinging for the fences, and we've improved. The car's improved a bit. But yeah, so I think goals is really just to
be the best you can be.
Yeah, really. Last year I did a lot more comparing myself to the drivers around me, and that was a mistake for sure.
Yeah. Well, we had a podcast at one point on a guest, and we discussed professional racing, and it's a hustle because you're not racing for yourself at this point. You're racing. You're only as good as your last race.
Yes.
And you're racing for somebody else at that point.
Yeah, we've talked with Tom O'Gorman about this point as well. And, what is professional racing? And
Hustling.
by most people's metric, it's the amount of money spent per weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But what's insane to me is that if you take any IMSA race and even a lot of like IndyCar races, we have more people watching the Grid Life live stream than ever watch those series. And we're doing what I consider just to be really basic club level stuff.
Well, you know why? Is that because it's attainable?
Because of the money, I think, to be honest.
Well, yeah. I mean, you figure that you really can't get into. I mean, you can watch professional racing, enjoy professional racing, but the guys are at Grid Life. I mean, they're like your neighbor, and they're good.
Really good.
And it's something that if you really wanted to, you could do it if you wanted to. But you really can't go and say, "Hey, I'm going to drop into an F1."
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even watching Sally McNulty field her TCA Honda Civic this year, she really wants to be in that series, and she's worked her butt off, but entry fees are real.
Yeah.
And I forget the gentleman's name, Gino. I forget his last name, but they fielded a privateer Audi in an IMSA race in Florida. But again, they had to pony up the entry fee and had very minimal spares. I mean, it's hard. And even in some of the endurance racing world, I mean, those guys are bringing in stacker trailers for Champ Car now. It's crazy.
Yeah. So
stacker's not attainable for us, and I don't see it happening unless I back up really poorly one time, which is definitely possible. But
then you get people that just kind of roll up in like a Miata and do really well without having a stack trailer.
So fun fact, I'm not sure if either of you know this. We actually drive our car to the track.
Yep. With your trail behind little trailer.
Yeah. It is not recommended at the point we are. But it's been kind of what we've had to do because we just don't have money for an entire tow rig, and we're working to change that right now. But it's, the car has to have two windows that function. Car has to have two seats with harnesses or seatbelts. It's got to have a lot. It's got to have headlights. It's got to have a lot of things a race car doesn't have to have. And it's a terrible road car, and it's not a great race car because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Compromised.
That's right.
It is absolutely compromised.
So tell me, why the Miata for you? I know for me, but why for you?
Well, why for you? Why did you have an NB?
I have an NB, and I have an NB. It's a 1999 Flying Miata. I don't race it. I train in it, but I think that it will be a great instructor's car when I get to that level.
Nice.
It's got a turbo on it.
The Flying Miata turbo in it, and it's a lot of fun. I think it's because I do like the Miata and I do like the BMW that we have, both for different reasons. But the Miata it feels almost like a toy when you're riding it. It handles the turns really, really well. It handles the S's. But granted, the Flying Miata, I can still relatively compete with other Miatas more so. I can beat Miatas on the straightaway with the turbo.
Oh yeah.
But that's only in training. It's not sustainable
for endurance racing.
Endurance racing.
Yeah, those generate a lot of heat under the hood.
They do. They really do. But that's why 20-minute stints, not bad. Let it cool.
Perfect.
But I think also is that the Miata is a very forgiving car. It's easy to control. Now I can get away with doing some of the same things in Bill's car, which is a BMW, but it has a lot more power behind it. I just think the Miata is just such a fun car to drive, and it goes together like a Lego.
Yeah.
it's very affordable to have.
They
Yep.
were up until recent time, but
Yeah, right.
Everything's expensive right now.
exactly.
How about you? Why is your choice the Miata?
So for me, when I was looking for cars, I was originally looking at getting a factory 5. What was their most recent kit car they came out with? That's powered by a Subaru.
Oh, the WRX version.
Yeah, I forget what that model is called now.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was looking into that, just to be able to literally nut and bolt the entire thing. Sounded intriguing to me. I was actually looking at putting a K-series motor into it rather than the Subaru. I've had enough experience with Subaru motors. I didn't want to be associated with one of them on track. And but I quickly realized how much money that is up front, and then how much time it just spends sitting being worked on.
Is it the
And
818? Is that the right?
818, that's it.
Okay. I couldn't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to look for a car that I could drive on the track while I'm developing it. So started looking around. Purchase price was absolutely a factor. I couldn't spend 10 grand just on a car, and then, however much money that goes into it, which at this point has been significant, I'm sure. So I wanted something affordable to purchase. I wanted something that would be reliable, and something that has a large enthusiast base and a deep knowledge library, because I knew I wouldn't have a whole lot of time or money to throw at the development of some random car.
Mm-hmm.
Really needed to be better at doing research than most other people. And
The forums are phenomenal.
they've been great. And, like anything, you've got to weed through and find the better signal to noise people. Yeah. But then, going to the track, my first track day, I'd had a cage and hardtop put on it. The cage I'd had somebody do, and then I put seats and a hardtop on it, and front brake pads, and that was it. It had a really crappy all-season tire still on it. Had OEM pads on the rear, stock power, just basically safety, and that was it. And I had a riot. Finally, my second day, and this was at Grid Life Gingerman in October 2018. My second day, and this was when they were still doing ride along with instructors. My instructor and I we finally got a point by from a Porsche Carrera, and we were just fist pumping as we waited for him to pretend to lift off the throttle to give us a point by. And man, you really got to breathe the accelerator with a stock Miata. They're slow.
Yeah.
Not as slow as a Mazda 2, though, as we have found out from Becky's car. That thing is tragic.
When I go out on the track with the Miata, I end up racing or looking for other Miatas, and I don't really compete with anybody else as much because I really just can't compete. Except, I can catch up with everybody in the turns. Straightaways are tough. Yep. So the best thing you could do is just try to beat them in the turns.
As an instructor, that's one of the things I try to impress upon not only my students, but on the group in general, is that we do it. This is a team sport we're doing. Mm-hmm. And if there's some crap can slow Miata that's on your butt in the turns, that means that they are faster than you. Let them by. Take it easy on the straight, learn what they're doing in the corners, and then once then pass them again, and you've just learned a lot from a much slower car. It doesn't matter how fast you or the car are, but if you can learn from other people, you will be better for it.
Yeah, I think in our lessons it was especially with the Miata, is that you got to play to your strength. You know. And,
did you ever notice that cars above a certain horsepower or a certain dollar threshold, apparently it's required that your left arm be trimmed and unable to do a point by to a slower car? I was just wondering. It was news to me, but I've noticed.
We impress upon our students in fast cars heavily that you're not less of a person if you get passed by a slower car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we basically play it as, use it as an opportunity to then show them how much faster you are by learning what they're doing, and then pass them again.
I think when it comes to the HPDEs and the training events, it's very deceiving when people come out with a very big and powerful car, especially when they're learning, because they think it's all about going fast, and it's really not about going fast.
No.
So
no, one of our episodes, probably the goofiest one we've done, was with a bunch of instructors down at NCM in April, talking about the pitfalls of people not getting on track. And one of the biggest things is, my car's not ready.
Yep.
And I had safety in my car before I went, because at the time I had a 4-year-old son that I really love and want to continue to be a part of his life. But I'm a big fan of put the crappiest tires you have on the car. If you are just starting out tracking and you have anything in the 200 tread wear rating, you're doing it wrong. Get some good brake pads, get some good fluid, and a helmet. Like, that's literally it.
Yeah. So,
and an instructor.
We've seen race prepped cars with slicks going into HPD1, and I'm just shaking my head going, no, you're missing.
Yeah. 2 years ago, I was instructing another Miata who had also, don't bring a project car as a HPD car.
Nope.
Because inevitably you end up working on it more than driving. I had this kid bring a Ecotech swapped Miata. He had just finished it the week before on brand new Hoosier slicks for a beginner. And we don't allow that straight up, period, end of story. So a call was put out over the PA. Hey, if anybody has a 4x100 set of wheels and tires to let somebody borrow, we've got a beginner who would love to borrow those from you. So
yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
So what about I'm getting the vibe that you're instructing.
That's a vibe.
Which is
piece that together. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of all this. Yeah. So do you have a race philosophy that you're teaching your students?
I'm not sure.
Just like an overall. I mean, one of the vibes I'm getting is that watch what they do, watch what other drivers do, or anything else.
One of the things I preach, and I say preach because of who I am as a person, is largely to play the team sport aspect of it and play well with others on track. And because this plays out through every level of driving, regardless of condition or level or group. If you can't give good point buys or make clean pointed by passes in beginner, you're going to have a rough time in advance. And if you can't be aware enough to let people pass in proper spots, and you're going to have a hard time in time attack. And if you're not aware enough to let somebody pass you in every corner possible, boy, you're going to have a hard time when you've got 2 cars on either side of you and 3 in front of you, and you can't see where you're going. It's absolutely a team sport, whether you're trying to win or not. those people on track are still there with you. You still have to play well together.
You have to work together to get around that track.
Yeah, and I've gone through a few corners, sketchy corners, too wide with people, and you bet your butt we've had to work together to actually make sure we do that without contact. And I've made a couple mistakes, and those aren't good days either.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things about GLTC is that the field is very competitive with amongst each other. There's usually a couple groups, different levels, but they're all very competitive. They're all very tightly spaced, and there's this non-F1 aspect of GLTC where you actually pass a car. I don't know if you've ever noticed that you guys pass people, but you don't do the racing's rubbing and rubbing's racing. You're very cognizant of, hey, this is his car, or this is her car, and this is my car, and you treat them as such, as opposed to that's a speed bump I need to get around.
Yeah, part of it for us too, and this is certainly part of where we come from, is like, this car's got to get us home. I mean, this is literally our ride home. Becky and I are gonna drive from West Michigan to Mid Ohio in just over a week, actually in a week from today.
Yeah.
And that car's got to get me home. Otherwise, it's going to be a rough.
And how long is that trip for you?
It's 5 hours.
Okay. So could you tell me some of your home tracks?
Gingerman's probably the one we consider our home base. It's 45 minutes driveway to Paddock. It's pretty phenomenal.
I think you would love that.
Yeah, it's nice.
I would.
Grattan, we've been to several times. It's just north of Grand Rapids, and it is a delight of a track. Great elevation, tight club course, old school vibes. It's cool. Otherwise, the ones we go to the most, we go to Blackhawk Farms once a year, go to Road America once a year, we go to Autobahn once a year, Mid Ohio once a year, NCM about once a year. Although that may change for next year, we'll have to see. And yeah, pretty much we follow Grid Life, but we do several extra events at Gingerman, and of course the One Lap of America.
So how was your 2021 looking, or has been looking?
Boy, we managed to fit a season or two worth of drama in about a month and a half this year.
Explain.
We're gonna get to it.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll hold off.
Yeah, it was the beginning of this season was hard, and I don't want to make a triumphant story out of it, because I feel like that kind of trivializes what caused everything, but it was extraordinarily hard.
I look forward to hearing this story.
Yeah.
It's quite a story.
This break between the meet at Gingerman with a bunch of Hondas to Mid Ohio has been the longest break we've had this year, and it's 4 weeks apart. We were doing every other weekend events for a while, and boy,
that's a lot.
I don't think we're gonna be doing that again.
That's a lot.
That explains not going to Pikes Peak. So,
well, and driving the car all the way to Pikes Peak, it just we'd really like to get there someday. That's on the list. Just not while the car is the one doing the towing.
Yeah, that'd be asking a bit much of a Miata going up the hill. So with the trailer behind it.
Yeah.
So your GLTC car is your Miata. Your tow rig is your Miata.
Yep. And
your One Lap of America car, at least through this year, was your Miata.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, that is true.
So we were joking
a trend.
around. Yeah, we were joking around before when we were having some technical issues, shockingly with our podcast. But anyway, we were joking around about, I used to listen to your podcast and I'm like, Scott from the Track Walking podcast. I love this podcast. It just came out. It's like one of those first ones in the morning to listen to and then listen again. And then I'm like following GLTC and I'm seeing this red Miata with this little, almost like a zigzag yellow and orange stripe through it. And then today I realized, hey, wait, they're the same people. So, shows how smart I am. How you doing? So we've got two guests on.
Good.
One is Scott Robertson and one is Scott Robertson. So welcome to the
Hi, I'm Scott. That's my introduction voice is, hi, I'm Scott.
And who else do we have with us? Oh, we have Scott.
And then Seth does, and I'm Seth.
That's true. And it's awesome.
Yeah, and that's it.
Exactly. So we might as well get into it.
Do you know where that livery comes from, actually? That's
I don't actually. It's very cool because we're trying to find one for, we have Miatas in the house, and we're trying to find one that we like, and yours is on the list for sure.
Yeah.
But you don't want to copy somebody either, so that's the problem. No,
I would kind of be honored if this one made it onto other cars. This was the same livery as my father's Bilstein Rabbit from 1979.
It probably looked a little different on a Rabbit than it does on a Miata.
You'd be surprised.
Really?
I have a magazine cover that Rabbit did with his car being featured, and I got a very similar shot of our car, and the front of the Rabbit has a black grille and the front of our Miata has that black air dam, and it's a red car with these very retro 70s orange, yellow, orange stripes kind of meeting in a V at the front of the hood, tapering off to the sides, and then meets back on the back trunk. And, when we were getting into this, the One Lap of America is also a bit of a charity event. So when we were trying to figure out what charity we were going to do, it just clicked with me. Like my father died from a brain tumor several years back, and so let's do the American Brain Tumor Association.
Oh, okay.
And shoot, my car's red. His car was red. Why don't we just do the stripes? So we did. So that's kind of in honor of my dad, who kind of instilled the passion in this stupid hobby of ours. And yeah.
Now, does your father have is he still with you?
No, he died about 8 years ago.
Okay. What a very good commemoration.
Yeah, he's a good dude. So we've been raising money for the American Brain Tumor Association now for 3 seasons, and I think to date we've raised about $20,000.
That's awesome.
Which I'm pretty pleased with. We basically, in exchange for some smaller donations, we sent people these T-shirts that we've made up, kind of as an exchange, and we're doing a giveaway here with GLOC coming up next month as well, as an effort to do that as well.
Well, I was going to say, so how do you do the fundraising part of it? But I guess we covered that.
And a lot of it is from our sponsors and partners. A lot of our local sponsors and partners, we put about 2/3 of their sponsorship money as a donation, and then the remaining third usually we take as brake pads and tires and
car budget. Yeah,
car stuff.
Yeah, we're still trying to get a Slurpee sponsorship from 7-Eleven, just free Slurpees. That's all we're looking for. But whatever.
That wouldn't suck.
It wouldn't. It's tradition. So I've been putting together this show, the notes for this show, and I've been trying to figure out, because we wanted to talk to you about a few different things, and we want to talk to you about GLTC, and we definitely wanted to talk about One Lap of America, and I can't figure out how to talk about one without the other, because one kind of impacted the other. So I guess my first question, GLTC related, which may not be my first question, but on GLTC, I guess the easiest way to start this is how goes the season for those who haven't been able to follow?
So it's been tough.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say.
So our first race this season was at NCM, the National Corvette Museum track. And Grid Life was supposed to go there last year, but, a small global catastrophe happened and we had to give up that weekend. So I had only had like 9 hot laps there previously from one lap. And so we went down in March we hired Tom O'Gorman to come down for the weekend and give us some pointers, because this is a very complex track.
Yep.
And I didn't even know how complex it was until the end of that practice weekend for us. I didn't realize how much sections of that track flowed together.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went down, we did that, felt pretty confident coming out of it, really excited about our first weekend, went down there, had a okay first day practice qualifying in 2 races. What I've found is people tend to come out of the gate really hungry in any given season. And this was almost everybody's first race weekend of 2021. And there were what I call tryhards. We had a few tryhards that weekend. And if you are not familiar with NCM, it is not a forgiving place to have an oopsie. No. Because of the geographical space that it was built on, there's not much runoff, and all the runoff ends with something hard to hit. So we had an okay Saturday, challenging. We weren't quite making our time goal that I had set. And so, we were just going to kind of bring it home. So race 3, first race on Sunday, we go out and we're, in a pack, and there's a pack in front of us, of course, and we're coming around turn 5, which is a 95 mile an hour entry speed, pretty fast right-hand corner. And one car gets into another up ahead of me, and some cars go one way. And by the time I saw around the car that was in front of me, I had my friend's Porsche Cayman parked backwards in the middle of the track, and I managed to turn what could have been a direct impact into a glancing blow that threw my car up in the air, spun me 360 into a tire wall.
Not that there's ever good timing for an incident, but did you have anything coming up on your schedule right after that?
Yeah, we did. 2 weeks. At that point, less than 2 weeks, we were supposed to be on the first day of competition for the One Lap of America in that car. So my immediate thought after that was Becky and I talk while I'm in the car, and I let her know that there was a big impact, that I was still speaking. Took a short ride in somebody else's car back, and first thing I did was touch base with my 2 GLTC rookies I was in charge of that weekend, to let them know, that everybody was okay, and just to kind of keep their heads in it for the race, because racing is a mental sport. So touch base with them, and then after that, it was basically just shock. And we had I think the best way we described it is we were fortunate enough to be able to experience the grace and generosity of people around us. And by the end of the day, instead of driving the car home, we had one of our friends make room for both of us and some of our stuff in his car that he was going to drive to Chicago. We then got in another friend's car, which was sold to somebody in Michigan that we then drove from Chicago to Michigan. We had the car pushed onto Adam Jabay's trailer, who made a bunch of room for it. And he dropped it off directly to some good friends of ours who own a body shop in Northeast Indiana. And the entire ride home, I was on the internet sourcing parts. We absolutely were not sure if the car was going to make it to the One Lap of America, and that's a story in and of itself. So the next 2 weeks, week and a half really after that was not restful. I definitely got some gray hairs from that one.
Yeah, that was I was busy that weekend, so I didn't get to watch any of the coverage, and I tuned into the podcast, and it was pretty sad day on the podcast. So
yeah, it wasn't a great one.
No, for sure.
We took that Monday off recording, and
yeah. But
and that's kind of another thing to remember, when we're talking about the whole team sport aspect of it, is body work is not the worst thing to happen on a racetrack. It's hospital visits are the worst. Is cars, yeah. If you wad up a car, dent a car, it's bad. It's not good. But there are people in those cars, and a lot of times those people are your friends, and they travel with you, and you want to see them be able to continue to have date night. You want them to continue to go to work and make a living and do the things that they like to do. My neck hurt for about 2.5 months after that. It's body work's not the worst thing that can happen.
No. So I'm trying not to trivialize it, but I'm also trying not to delineate the details of what you had to do.
No.
You basically had a choice with the one lap. Well, 3 choices: don't repair or try out Plan B car. And I believe the decision was difficult and
It's
last
choice
minute.
B and C.
Yeah, exactly. So how'd you end up coming to your conclusion of I think you had both cars at the start, and you made your decision there?
Yeah, so everything could not have come together, like I said, without the grace and generosity of the people around us. Al's Auto Body, Northwest Indiana, huge shout out to them. They did the bulk of the effort the car is still wrinkled, but basically the goal was get it drivable, make it work.
Straight. Yeah.
And we were fortunate in that the entire driveline was fine. The right rear is the one that sustained the most damage. Most of that had to be replaced. Our front left, also, we had to replace the one of our really nice, expensive hubs and bearings. And the rear arrow had to be changed out because that got ripped off the car. It was a little bit, front air dam needed to be replaced. The splitter needed to be remade. So we're doing all of this while we haven't seen the car and not really knowing. So, we're getting parts shipped directly to Al's Auto Body. And at the same time, we get Becky a track day in the Mazda 2 so that she could drive it on track to familiarize herself with it, because it was very likely that car was going to be seeing a lot of driving very soon. So we got some brake pads and we got some parts and just kind of got that car ready. And we got the car, the Miata, back to our house at 10:30 p.m. Thursday night. And we needed to be at Gingerman for our alignment at 8:30 a.m. And so we had one of our friends, kind and generous, trailer our car up to our house for us to save us some time and effort in getting it there. And we spent the next 5 hours nutting and bolting the car, looking at everything and touching everything that there was to touch, being sure that everything was ready to go. New splitter was put on. We had some last minute drama that, we forgot the front bumper at Al's Auto Body. So our photographer, who was in Chicago and was going to meet us at Gingerman, stopped by and picked it up. So he met us so we didn't have an air dam driving from our house to Gingerman. And one of the last things we did was bleed the brakes, just be sure everything was good there. And apparently, like stop techs do that we didn't know at the time, they like to leak from the piston sometimes if they're cold. And we've had some trauma just recently. I just replaced the seals in those like a month before. And we weren't sure if it was going to make it, like if one of the seals got cracked or scratched or whatever. So we cleaned it up, did a test drive, came back, it was still kind of leaking. So we did it again. And so we were like, well, I guess the plan is to load up both cars in the morning, go down to Gingerman, put some road miles on it, take a look at the brakes again, and pick a car. So to make a long story longer, we got to Gingerman in the morning to JRM, who's a fellow Miata buddy who does our alignments. And we got there, jacked up the car, took the wheels off, looked at the brakes, and the passenger side caliper that we had been looking at the night before looked great, dry, pretty happy. Go to the driver's side and look, that one's leaking. Cool. All right, cool. So we made the executive decision as a team that, okay, we'll get the Miata aligned, we'll get the front air dam put on it, and we'll take both cars down to Indiana to the hotel where we start, and we'll take another look at the calipers, and if the calipers are dry, we'll take the Miata. If they are not, we're going to take the Mazda 2. And so we pulled into the hotel parking lot with a lot of our friends and fellow competitors there, just like excited that the car was there. Mm-hmm. And I hugged one of my dear friends who's also races GLTC. And it's like, I'm so happy to see you. Please hold on. We have to figure out what car we're going to take. So we take the wheels and tires back off, look at the brakes. The brakes were dry. So we're like, all right, let's put on the serious wheels and tires, and we'll see what kind of stupid stuff we can get into for the next 8 days.
That's awesome.
Which was plentiful.
So let me see. For One Lap America, how did the event go?
First few days were stressful. We had not had much sleep before an event that gives you not much sleep. So we were already tired coming into it. We were already anxious and nervous. And so every day we were just hyper vigilant on the car. Every morning, even on the one lap, we take the wheels off, put in hover mode, and we are looking at everything. We are touching everything because that's how we do things. And so the car did great on the wet skid pad. Me not scrubbing in the tires well enough was definitely my bad. But then we went to the autocross, did remarkably well there, and then drove all the way down from the tire rack to Grissom Air Force Base and then down to Memphis. And we go out for our sighting lap for the first timed event at Memphis, which was changed a little bit because it had been raining or was soon going to be raining. And on the first, turn one is a long, fast right-hander. So go into it, kind of seeing how much speed can I really carry in here. And like halfway through the turn, the car started braking for me. Like, okay, well, that's new. Kind of wiggle the steering wheel back and forth, and something doesn't feel quite right. Go into the first braking zone, no brakes. Cool.
Oh, geez.
It's just go through the grass there. So, okay. Get back, and I tell Brock, like, we've got to check this out. So we pull in, and the hub nut for our front left was barely finger tight. Ooh. So we're like, ooh, okay. So we tighten that down, put the wheel on, and just do a quick circle in the paddock area. And it was making a terrible sound. And to shorten this up, basically, we ended up DNFing that event, which was our first DNS, I guess, even for any one lap event. And it was due to the fact that somebody else had installed our beefy hub and bearing unit, and they had taken off the adapter ring. Uh-huh. And so the entire unit would fit over the stub and just rattle around. So no hub nut in the world was going to hold that on. And I'm shocked that it made it as long as it did. Yep. So we threw on our good OEM spare, finished up our last two, and one of our fellow competitors, Christopher Lewis from Shaky Dog, who races Miatas, uses the same hubs and bearings we do. And if we were to take a 2-hour detour on our way to Texas, they were going to pull off one of theirs off of their race cars and have it waiting ready for us. So for us on day 2, that was kind of a no-brainer. If we were to spend 2 hours, 2 less sleep hours to go get this part that we know works and is reliable, it's a no-brainer. Just go do it. So we did, put it on, and that was about the last of the troubles we had. And the car performed, I think, remarkably well, considering I had never been to any of the tracks I drove. It was Becky's first time in a competition setting, and I think we did great with our 217 horsepower or whatever we had.
Yeah, and all that time to prep and relax and kick back, and
I'm not sure if I'm still recovered.
I can't believe you guys actually got into One Lap America, because that's just amazing.
Yeah, and that was from my dad wanting to do it in 2002. It had never really been on my radar, but he's like, hey, there's this cool event that, you drive the car on the street and the track. I'm like, that's something you can do. So it's a novel idea to me. And the diversity of cars and trucks and vans and station wagons and all the manner of things that have seen one lap competition, right, just seemed absurd and just seemed like something I always wanted to do. And one of my big pitches to people who says, yeah, we'd love to do the one lap someday. Someday's not good enough. If you want to make it happen, you have to plan and make it happen. I wanted to do it with my dad, but we just missed our opportunities to do that. So
it seems like that situation, if I have it correct, kind of has you more living in the now.
I would love to say yes. That's a definite work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
My natural anxiety always wants to be looking forward.
So, what was your general setup for the One Lap America
this year?
Uh-huh.
So it was virtually identical to our GLTC prep, except for the rear wing that we had was a little bit bigger, and we were running full power. That's it.
But I'm talking about getting from point A to point B. How'd you guys
do that?
Yeah.
You
So
just put everything you need in the trunk. The Miata's got that spacious.
Yes. I'm just thinking, Miata's so
Yeah.
spacious.
Yeah. Well, the first one lap we did in the Miata with no trailer, and everything absolutely had its place. It had to. And then the second and third time we've done it, we've had a purpose-built trailer that we tow behind our Miata.
Mm-hmm.
And that carries, on GLTC weekends, that carries our spare wheels and tires, or our dry wheels and tires. It carries we call it the crap box in the middle, which is full of spares and tools we don't like to use and cleaning products, and then a big box on back that has our jack stands.
It's a triage trailer.
Virtually, yeah. It carries our coolers for GLTC weekend. Like, it carries our 10x20 pop-up on there too. I mean, we've got this thing loaded down.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we complicated it this year by doing race pads and street pads, just because the pads we like to use on track don't really work very well on the street.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
So now that you have a break and time to refresh, worth it?
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody feels one emotion at a time. You know, we all like to think, oh, I'm happy right now, but it's a flurry of things, especially these big events. You know, our friends and I talk about weddings being some of the happiest and most stressful day in your life, but it's not just one thing. And the entire one lap, we were so glad that the Miata got its last chance to see one lap duty. It's not going on the one lap ever again. And we're so glad to be competing in it. And we were so glad it was the last year that we would be competing in it. It's hard. Life is hard in that thing.
Yeah. So the Miata is not the ideal car for the transits. It's probably fun on the track, but One Lap America Transit car, you look in the top 3, I don't see Miata there.
No.
But since it also is your tow vehicle and also does the transits for One Lap of America, and it's your GLTC car, I don't want you.
And it could be his paddock car too at this point. I mean, when it's idle.
In the past, it has absolutely seen instructor duty to go a little off-roading.
So I'm not insulting your car. I love your car. Would I be remiss in characterizing it as a non-optimized GLTC platform at this point?
You would be correct.
Okay.
So we are at the power to weight limit, but I would only consider that to be optimized for the first year of competition in GLTC. Okay. Being at the power to weight limit is not optimized anymore if you want to be in the top half of the field. Right. We've got the heater core, which is ducted to a boat bilge blower for a defrost. Mm-hmm. I've still got turn signals and headlights and transmission that is just hateful, because we needed it to hold the power reliably, and the rear end, we had to drop our ratio to make sure our highway mileage just wasn't miserable, because that thing will sing at 4,000 RPM at like 75 miles an hour for hours on end.
Right.
That's just brutal on cars.
So you've got some car dialing in.
Yep.
For GLTC.
Yep.
And we talked a little bit about your coaching with Tom O. And
a lot of driver development needs to be done.
There's some driver upgrades. Obviously, I don't know anybody who doesn't need a driver upgrade, including the best of the best. So, but you did get to go coaching, and you went with Tom. And I guess I wanted to get into that because we don't talk to a lot of people who take advantage of the coaching. We want to try to see why. Well, we don't want to know why people don't do it, but we're trying to show them why they might want to do it. In general, how did it go? Did you get what you expected? Did you get something different? Is it,
part of what was nice, and Tom was the one who recommended NCM, partly because we were going to be competing there later on, but also partly because that track is a little bit of everything. It's got 2 very high-speed corners, but both of those corners are very different.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a lot of low-speed technical corners. It's got some elevation. It does kind of have a little bit of everything. And so I didn't know the track very well. I knew Tom, and I knew Tom well enough to know that the way he can explain things makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. I was a teacher in a former life and know that you can explain the same concept 7 different ways, and only one of those ways will really click to any given person.
Yep.
And so for Tom to be able to, not only does Tom just explain it, but he actually searches for different ways to explain the same thing until the one does click. And that for me was very, very valuable. And coaching to me, especially as an instructor and as somebody who wants to get in and do it more in the future, it's the one upgrade you can make to your track regiment that can travel with you from car to car and track to track. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you buy a new set of tires, a new turbo, a new seat, those stay with the car by and large, or those die and you have to buy something else. Right. But coaching is something that floats all boats higher, and something I had always wanted to do, and from a great deal of generosity from a track friend, I was able to hire Tom to come down and do that with us for the weekend.
Would you want to get into some of the specifics of what you got out of it as a driver? Yeah,
a lot of it was brake pressure, not only the maximum initial brake pressure, but how I come off the brakes, which I've known I wasn't the best at. And that's kind of the final frontier, even with the professionals. Sure. Really, how you come off the brakes is, I heard Ross Bentley describe it, is when you can steer the car with your feet and brake with your hands, you're really getting everything out of the car. And I've experienced that only on a handful of occasions and a handful of corners, but when it happens, and I'm trying to get there all the time, but it's going to be a lifelong process.
Sure.
Some of it was just a little bit of bravery in the high-speed corners. High-speed corners are more important for track time than low-speed corners because you are going so fast. If you're a mile an hour slower in a 95 mile an hour corner, it's a much bigger deal than if you're a mile an hour slower in a 35 mile an hour corner. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we tend to drive slow in the fast stuff and too fast in the slow stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really picking your battles, finding the low-hanging fruit, and I'm working on that stuff.
Yeah. So I guess the question that everybody wants to know is, when you get coached by Tom, do you get a pair of blue sunglasses?
No.
Oh, well, we're gonna have
you do, however, and I find this to be more valuable, you do get to know the best Mexican joint.
Okay.
Close to whatever racetrack you happen to be at. And that is a perk.
That's one of our super secret questions that Vicky hates that I do at the end. So we'll
talk about that.
It's natural. You talk to a race car driver. I think it's your duty as a fellow race driver to tell them one thing they need to order at a track, wherever it may be, because you get hungry.
And Becky's much better about remembering that than I do. She loves the Shogun truck at NCM.
Okay.
And definitely get the yum yum sauce. If you don't, you're an idiot.
Okay.
Missing out.
That sounds great. We'll have to go to NCM. That was the only track I've been to so far where I was sitting there going, okay, that wasn't so bad. I got this track down, and then I look up and I see him at turn 15.
Yeah.
And I'm like, 8 more turns to go. Okay, we're not done. So apparently don't have this track. It is.
Yeah.
It's like it's just when you think it was over. No, there's more.
Yeah.
So upcoming race schedule, where are you going? You got anything coming up?
Yeah. Next weekend we are at Mid Ohio for Grid Life's Midsummer Meet. We're going to be driving there a week from tonight, Thursday night, and we compete Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's one of our few 3-day events, and I'll be instructing as well. And Becky will also be driving. So it's our first trifecta weekend where I'm competing, instructing, and she's driving. So we fortunately have at least one friend coming down to lend a hand and help out, because it's going to be busy.
Yeah.
They're restful weekends for us, but they're fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got that. And then about a month after that, we're back at Gingerman for Grid Life's Midwest Festival, which is a 4-day event and is basically the party of our entire schedule. If one lap is the adventure, Midwest Fest is the party. And we'll be doing GLTC and instruction there. And at nights, we hang out, eat some good food, and we haven't seen the music lineup yet, but usually, you know, we go and hop around and listen to some live music.
So at a Grid Life race, I've seen a lot of those. I've only seen one Grid Life festival. I'm always curious, what is the lap time delta for GLTC Saturday pre-party night and Sunday the next day? Is there like 2 seconds, 3 seconds? What are we talking?
It's heat dependent only. We've got with some people, you know, some people do imbibe in the evenings. We just find, you know, even at my age, I don't bounce back from that.
Yeah.
And I'm not focused. I can't do what I want, what I pay and spend all that time and money to do well.
Right.
So we'll hang out, but we drink a lot of water in between and after and through, and we try to get at least 6 hours of sleep. It's kind of a bare minimum for me.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's just we were trying to get out there for it, and with the COVID, that was just, if you're going to go to a Grid Life or a Grid Life Fest, going during COVID was just not what you wanted to do your first one. And this year the schedules just didn't work. So we're going to get there next year, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of learned all that. I used to do competitive water skiing as well. And on competition weekends, we would go and we would often describe ourselves as a drinking team with a water ski problem. And so at nights, you know, we would compete in flip cup and stay up late. And I just find I couldn't hang, even like in college, and just after that, I just couldn't hang. So learning about yourself is important.
Exactly. It's I try to think of it as a competition, and it's not necessarily competing against other people, because you do that too, but it's a competition that you need to train for and prepare for. And if you're going to go compete, you should be in the best condition and kind of see where you're at. So that's kind of how we kind of approach it.
Yeah. And we try not to be somber about it, because the best races we've had are fun and they're close battles. But we take what we do seriously at the same time. We take prep very seriously. We take the weekend seriously. But we love hanging out with our friends, and we love meeting new people who know us from social media or something, or meeting up with somebody we know we didn't realize, kind of connect the dots. And, you know, we've been starting to do more tire and setup review data for people, and, you know, just trying to help out and do what we can.
So I think I found your podcast. I think you're on like episode 2. Every now and then I just do a search for racing podcasts, just because I listen to podcasts at 2x. So I go through them fairly quickly.
Good for you. So that's why you can listen to ours twice.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's only half the time. So, you know, so I'm going through and I'm looking at the podcast. I was actually early enough where you guys were having the audio difficulty, and I was trying to find you guys.
Oh, yeah.
I sent the text to Adam saying, hey, I think I know what the problem is, and I might be able to help him, you know, but so So I guess you started the podcast. You've got a pretty unique perspective between you and your co-host. What were your goals for the podcast to start with?
I think for me, and Seth and I have talked about this enough that I think I can speak for him a little bit in this manner, is before the podcast, I knew Seth from the One Lap of America years prior. And he and I had been talking about the same stuff we talk on the podcast just through text or Facebook Messenger for well over a year before we started the podcast. And just nobody was talking about this stuff. And, we'd hear Ross get into it a little bit from time to time, but just kind of touch on it. And, it's just not what his podcast is geared towards. And just nobody was doing it. And so eventually it's like, well, I guess it's going to have to be us.
Yeah.
So we're coming at it from, we look at racing through the lens of psychoanalysis, philosophy, and a little bit of spirituality. And essentially, the tagline of the show has become, how you do anything is how you do everything, which was our first episode and kind of the whole theory and hypothesis of the show. And even when we have guests on the show, is learning, we all do the same thing, but we do it very differently, and understanding why, and, is winning the reason why we do things. And that was one of the episodes. And I think absolutely it is not. It's actually, we race for the failures. So it's been good. It's been good to explore. And we've got too much to talk about left to stop yet. So we'll be coming back soon.
That's awesome. Vic, you're on mute. This is why we don't have live video going to YouTube, by the way.
Well, that can be good, hilarious, chaotic fun too, though.
Yeah.
That's true.
So, did your podcast goals change over time?
The goals?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like why?
The only thing I think for me was kind of to keep up the social media aspect of it. I started like a small Facebook group. I don't really know why. I think because the 10/10 guys had theirs, and so I thought it was something that you were just supposed to do. And so it really kind of became about maintaining the thing for me. And so it just started becoming a bit of a burden just in terms of like the upkeep of it.
Yeah. And
so I think when we come back, Seth and I are going to have a conversation about what's essential and what do we really care about. And I think the social media stuff for me is going to get a little bit farther and fewer between. I just don't have the time or energy to be able to I've got a race car. Becky's got a race car. I've got a house. I've got a son. Becky's got a house. She's working. I mean, we've got tons of stuff and only so much time.
Right.
And for us, I think certainly for me, the conversation is what's important.
Sure.
And, the social media stuff may help us reach more people. But again, why do we want to reach more people? Are we trying to make a living out of this? Because we're doing a crap job of doing that so far.
Right there with you.
Yeah. So, if we're not going after sponsors and dollars and stuff, just pour the energy into what is important, which again, I think is the conversation.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, it was funny on Instagram, somebody called us a shill for one of our posts. And I'm like, well, a shill would actually be getting paid for doing something. So whatever the opposite of that is, we've got a chance at the shill part. TBD.
A broke zealot.
Exactly. I can't even get a free Slurpee and you're telling me a shill, but whatever. So in case people weren't familiar with your podcast, what were some of the highlight topics that you've had so far, or highlight guests even?
Oh, I can't play it through here. Dang it. That's a bummer. I was going to play the intro music real quick.
Oh, that's okay. You got all these fancy toys.
Yeah. Apparently it doesn't do that. That's weird. I thought it would have. So one of the, one was, I think we called it Love to Lose, which is basically the reason why we actually do these things is to lose. Because losing then enables us to tell the story of what could have been different. And that's what keeps us in it. It's winning is fine. It's crazy whenever I see some of the more winning drivers and they're like, yeah, I just came in second and then third. It's, things just, car's not doing what I want to. And I'm sitting back here, I'm thinking, dude, I'd be buying beers for everybody if we were coming in second and third. Yeah. But it's grass is greener. And the reason that makes that grass greener is the fence, not the grass. It's the things that keep you from that goal. So that's one. We did a early interview with Tom or Gorman. Yeah.
Him too.
That we really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And one of the most recent ones is we sat down with 4 Grid Life friends.
Oh, that was a good one. Yeah.
And we talked about what it was like being a minority in paddock. And that was just an important podcast. I offered them just to take the mics and not even have me there. But we all kind of agreed that it'd be good if I was there and a part of it. And that feels to me like a sticky in a forum topic like that. Yeah. This is like the prerequisite reading to a college course is that podcast for me.
Yeah. The other one I would add is the one with Tiffany Kelly when you were talking about conquering fears on the track.
Yeah. And that was funny story. That's actually our second interview with Tiffany. Tiffany was actually our first guest, and we forgot to record. So
I won't say we've done that, but yeah.
And that was a bummer because that first conversation was good. The second one was also good. It was just different. So
we had our first technical snafu. We were at a Lucky Dog race and we had Randy Popst on, and we realized 40 minutes in that the microphone wasn't on, but the laptop was sitting in the corner.
Oh God.
Yeah.
It was a good interview too.
It was, for once.
What a good guy. I met him on the one lap this year, and it's like he's got a huge like social media personality.
Yep.
But like he came up
he's
to
a
us.
seat stealer.
Yeah. I mean, like,
that's what we call him.
I mean, we don't think particularly highly of ourselves, but like he came up to us and was just talking, shooting the stuff, and just talking. I mean, he's a good dude.
He is.
He is a good dude.
He is. So, you got any bucket list items left for the podcast? Any topics? Any guests? Any?
Oh yeah, the well runneth over with topics. I mean, we've got quotes that we're going to use as jumping off points. We've got, for my theological training and background, we've got stuff to jump off from there. Seth, it's always fun. Seth and I sometimes prepare the same topic and then we talk about it on the podcast, and sometimes we sync up and other times it's totally different. Which is it's again, and why we come at it from the way we do is who we are. So it's fun to continually get to know him like that. Guess I feel like we could interview the entire GLTC paddock, and we probably will in 2035. There's a bunch of great people, not many of them not at the front. A lot of the people we race with and the people we started out with, we'd love to talk to them.
all the stories aren't in first place,
No, and most of them aren't. I think, those definitely get the screen time, but most of the best battles are not up there. They can be for sure, but a lot of times they're not.
For sure. I mean, the one thing, I've got to do my requisite sucking up to my guest. The one thing I really think that separates your podcast from just about all the others is you've got a uniqueness and in the way that you come at it from different perspectives, but it's not just like you and your co-host have a different perspective. You'll actually, circle topics from virtually all the perspectives and really get a unique way of discussing things. And, I don't miss it. It's one of those can't miss podcasts.
Thank you. Yeah. It's called Track Walking.
It is.
And yeah, that's how we learn too. I learn by talking, which is, I'm an introvert by nature, but when I get going on something that I'm passionate about, it's hard to shut me up. And philosophy, spirituality, psychoanalysis, and race cars are and other people are very interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I know they're to Seth, and Seth is like one of the warmest, most genuine people I know. And it's a delight to share that podcast with him.
He's got this thing about mini motorcycles we're going to have to talk about at some point.
He loves riding kids' motorcycles, and his daughter is much faster than him and has been for quite a while. And he couldn't be happier about it.
No,
because that is who he is as a person.
Absolutely. So when I was doing my my skulking around, tracking down people and realizing that you were the same two people just in one body, not your fault, mine. It looks like you've got sister podcast on the Track Tuned channel. I don't know what the proper terminology would be.
Called the Track Tuned family, I guess.
Family? Okay.
Yeah, the most notable, the biggest one, and Robbie may punch me for this one, is Slip Angle.
Yep.
That's it's Adam and Abrams, and follows greatly most of what Grid Life does, and it talks more than a little bit about RVs and buses.
I was going to say you got to put RVs as well.
Yep.
Co-title.
And then 10/10. They do more topics. They do some games, a lot of fun, and they've generated quite their little community around them. And there's also Time with Attackers. I like to joke and call it the defunct because they just haven't done it in so long, but it was very time attack focused.
Yep. I just found that one today, so I started listening to it on the way home.
Yeah, they had some really interesting episodes. And then the redheaded stepchild that is Track Walking. And we do the most postings, so we're probably the most obnoxious on there. But it's kind of where you can find us on a web browser outside of a podcast outlet or Facebook or Instagram.
Yep. Well, I've been stalking you guys since episode 2 or 3 because I realized that, I just love this podcast, and I've been stalking you on social media, trying to get you guys to come on. And don't think that your co-host is going to escape me. I don't give up. I will find him.
He will for sure. I'll make sure. I want to get Becky on here too. She's a lot more interesting than me in a lot of ways.
Yep. Well, we are putting together our first ever 100% female race team for this coming weekend. Not this weekend, but next weekend.
That is phenomenal. Crew and everything.
Everything. I am there to look pretty useless.
Becky, what are you doing?
I'm driving, and I am going to help with the mechanic work.
There you go.
So
fantastic.
We're going to go with a fully prepped, and the goal is that we're going to accept diagnosis
if we need it.
If we need it, but only the girls are working on it.
Yep.
Sounds good. Mm-hmm. Where are you racing?
Thompson, Connecticut.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Been up there.
Yes, we have. We are. It's going to be very interesting because we have a person who is 1 or 2 races, and then one who is strictly autocross.
And then your sister, who's also on our team.
Yeah. So. Well, Jennifer's raced plenty of times with us, but
what I have learned from autocrossers, though, is, especially from the One Lap of America, is autocrossers pick it up very quickly. They may not be like ultimately as fast, but they will come out of the gate swinging on lap 2. They're impressive.
Yeah. So we had discussed with Audra, who is the autocrosser, and both of them have been autocrossers, but we put her in the truck for the first time to take a test drive on the airfield where our hangar is, and just the smiles on her face was like, this is amazing. So
this is the S10.
Yes.
That's phenomenal.
Yes.
That was so cool.
So she
welded diff.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome.
It's almost a Miata, except twice as much weight. But
she goes, this thing is so deceptive. This thing is so much fun to drive. We had to put in a seat because she is so short. She's a small girl.
I would have gone with
like
petite.
5'2". Yeah, she's petite, 5'2", I would probably say, maybe. And so we had to put a special seat in, and my sister jumped in the truck. She's like, oh my God, I have a whole new perspective of everything I could see in this thing now. But we've decided that if she's going to go she's going to go driving with us, we're going to start out in 45-minute stints to see if because you got to work up to it. It's exhausting. There's so many inputs you got to focus on.
I think she'll be fine. The theory is if we do a short stint for her first, and then she can get out, relax, and acclimate to it, then she'll be fine. It's just
just need to absorb it first. It's a lot of information because we'll race 2 hours at a time on our team.
We whenever Becky drives either on transits or on track, we have a 5-inch thick piece of foam that we that she carved, and she calls it the tombstone because it kind of looks like a tombstone that goes behind her and a little bit under her to push her far forward enough and at the same time up to be able to reach the pedals and do the race car things.
We had an incident in a situation like that because we have our race team is all different sizes, and my sister being the smallest broke 2 ribs in it because she didn't fit into the seat properly. So now we have to, because of that, now we have body molds for the rest of us because
that's the proper way to do it.
Yeah. Well, it was only because of her breaking those ribs, obviously. So.
Yeah, that wasn't something we wanted to do twice.
Yeah.
Halo seat is in my future. But again, like you want to talk about being compromised, it's even compromised safety wise. I mean, you can't have a Halo seat in a first or second gen Miata without taking out the quarter window.
Right.
And we can't take out the quarter window because we have to drive this thing in all weather conditions on the road. So Halo seats are not my favorite. I know. I get it.
They're tough to get in and out of the vehicle.
It's not
but they're
great
safe.
for fire drills.
No, they're not.
But coming from an incident that saw much more lateral impact than front to back impact, I'm grateful that my next gen has a moderate to slight amount of side impact protection that a lot of Hans devices don't.
Right.
But it wasn't enough. So stuff we don't like to talk about in race cars, but something that if you race long enough, you're going to have something happen.
Well, a friend of ours said it's not about if, it's about when.
Yeah.
And, that's just the nature of racing. And I think my sister actually had been in 2 incidences with the cars. And she said the first one had her so wound so tight, but after the second, it was like a Band-Aid being pulled off.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Your first is your worst, and having only had one, I'm good. Like it could stay at the 1, and I'd be fine with it. But
if it's only your worst, then that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, my neck seems to be largely recovered from what can be recovered from. The rest of it's just being old. And, the car is going to go back in the body shop this winter and, kind of get the rest of it worked on and looking better. And hopefully we don't have to deal with that again for a very long time.
We're definitely hoping it, both from a personal perspective, we don't like seeing any of our friends getting hurt. And from a strictly podcast perspective, I don't want to see your podcast go away. So, stay safe, sir.
That is the goal. Have fun, stay safe.
Exactly.
That's right.
Well, until we have you on again, because we have another entire podcast of silly, stupid questions that we can go through, and we will subject them to you at some time. But
I know I heard the Kelly ones. I was prepping my answers already.
No. If there's one that you want to hit, we've got them. They're ready. But
I don't remember any of them.
Okay, well that's what most people say about our podcast.
Feel free. Take your.
Do you have one, Vicky?
Take your pick.
We'll do two.
Well,
close your eyes and point.
I think that we could do a couple.
Okay.
We're going to do an abbreviated Fast and Furious Storytime questions.
That's right.
Okay.
With Scott Robertson. Woohoo!
Hi.
Okay, Scott.
Yes, ma'am.
What was your very first car and the worst car you've ever had?
First car I owned or first car I drove?
First car
whichever.
We'll take both answers.
So the first car I ever drove, my father owned that Chrysler dealership when I was in high school. So I would often get loaner cars. Some of them were used, some of them were new. The first new loaner that I got was a first gen Neon SRT. Not the 4 because this was the Gen 1, but this was the ACR. I'm going to get that right. First gen Neon ACR. Had the better transmission, had the fog light delete, had the good suspension. It had kind of all the things, and it was a cool car. White with blue stripes. And that lasted about a little over a month until I got a speeding ticket, and I gave my dad the speeding ticket and the keys, and I went to bed because figured we'll just talk about it later. So that was the first car I drove for any length of time. My parents got me the 2-day car control clinic with Skip Barber prior to that, which I highly recommend any parent, even for safety reasons on the road. Your kid will learn more in 2 days than they did in 3 months of driver's ed, if they even took it.
Right.
We drove Vipers. We drove Dodge Dakotas with bald tires on them, and we were doing figure 8s around the wet skid pad sideways by the end of it. And Neons doing autocrosses, emergency lane change drills, threshold braking, all of it. It was a great learning experience. The first car I ever owned was probably my worst, and it was a PT Cruiser, naturally aspirated with its only redeeming quality, besides the amount of crap that you could fit on the inside, was that it did have a 5-speed. It wasn't the automatic.
Oh, okay. I was going to say I didn't know PT Cruisers came with redeeming qualities.
The PT Cruiser was like, at the time, the midlife crisis car.
Oh, for sure. And that was at the time when the forums were getting really big. And this is one of my goofy car things is I got on this forum, PT Crew, and, it was all turbos, all of the turbo PT Cruisers talking about going fast and suspension and all this stuff. And I'm like, I've got this dump truck of a car and you can't really do much with it. So I sold that, bought a turbo PT Cruiser 5-speed without the sunroof, and proceeded to dump a fair bit of money into it. And I loved that car dearly. And it was good fun. I'm a fan of a tasteful, well-modded PT Cruiser.
Okay, very well.
So, go ahead, Bill.
So we have this plan. We're going to win the lottery. We're going to buy a deserted island.
Yes.
We're going to build a track.
This was one of the ones I had to think about.
We're going to give back to all our guests.
Yes.
And each one, we want to make sure the guest has the experience that they deserve.
Yes.
And we want to know what 5 cars we need to have ready for you waiting.
First, I think that's very generous. Thank you.
Oh, we're givers.
The first one has to be the Miata.
Okay.
I've put way too much time and money into that thing to not have it go do spectacular things. So
just throw it in your backpack and take off with it.
Do we need to bring the trailer, or is it fine without?
If it's going to be at a track, it's just going to sit there, so it'll be fine.
Okay.
The second car has always been a dream car of mine. It's a Ferrari F40.
Ooh, okay, the 40.
But it's the Ferrari F40 LM version.
Okay.
White.
Okay.
I drool over that car. I have dreams about that car. I'm never sure if I could drive it in anger because I have such high esteem for it. But I would do my best.
We'll have a backup for you in case things go wrong.
That works. I would have some kind of a McLaren.
Okay.
Andy Hollis could probably tell me which
sure.
one I'd actually want. The P1, the Senna, I don't know, one of them. But they seem like exceptionally cool cars, and I'd like the opportunity to be able to get into it.
Okay.
I would then need a slow car. I would want.
If you say PT Cruiser, I'm really going to be upset with you, sir.
No, it's
okay. Just checking.
Part of me is still sad that I can't drive that anymore. It was great in a straight line. I'm not sure about on a racetrack. Never got that opportunity. But I would want something like a first gen Fit, which I owned for several years, or a Mazda 2.
Mm-hmm.
Basically modded to Sunday Cup rules, and just a car that you maybe check the oil and you just thrash on track and then park it and start up the grill afterwards. Like a no nonsense, but car that you can just beat on and not have to worry about it.
Sounds like a blast. Miss Vicky, you got one to choose?
I do. What is the one car that got away?
Yeah, I remember this one, and I'm not sure I have a car that ever got away. I haven't owned very many cars. I do still miss my first gen Fit that I sold. It was absolutely the right decision, but I still miss it.
That could be it.
That
I
car.
miss my Jeep.
Which Jeep?
I had a Jeep Wrangler. I had the Islanders, if you remember those.
Oh yeah.
I had the white Islander, the sunset on the side.
With the tan accents, I think.
It was like orange and blue and yellow.
Yeah,
it was white. Had the big lights.
We had one of those at the dealership.
Yeah, they had the Islanders and the Saharas.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah, the Fits, I mean, they're so slow. They're just happy on a commute, like on ramps, exit ramps.
Mm-hmm.
They're just happy to be turning, happy to be doing anything. You can't pass passes take half an hour's worth of planning. But they're super spacious on the inside. Mine was totally reliable. They were just fun econo boxes.
Mm-hmm. My friend had one. I think he proved to me several dozen times that the top speed was 83 miles an hour.
I think I got mine up to mid 80s once, like 88, maybe 89. But that was with a head of steam. So.
Yeah, there's only so much open road you can get sometimes. But okay, so favorite car movie or car from a movie of all time?
Yes. So the one that has the most nostalgia, and I'm never going to go back and rewatch it because I'm absolutely positive it's trash, there was a TV show based around the Dodge Viper
there was.
in the mid 90s, I want to say.
Might have been early, but I remember it.
Yeah, and a total dumpster fire of a show is loosely piggybacking off Knight Rider a little bit. Like this car could transform and do a lot of stuff, which I just thought was cool as a kid. Movie wise, I want to say definitely the chase scene from Bullet is a standout. I think as well the early Fast and Furious movies. They're just obscene, over the top, silly, but yeah. And there was a PT Cruiser in one of those, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Fun fact. But yeah, probably those.
Okay.
So I have one for you.
I'd probably have to put a Viper on the island too.
Okay. Well,
I'd have to.
Well, you don't have to bring a taco truck. Jennifer took care of that for you, so you're good.
Yes.
Well,
we have a taco truck on it.
Becky will absolutely be there if there's a taco truck.
She's more than welcome.
So if you could drive or race a car from any one decade, which one would you choose? This is always interesting.
Yeah, I can't say I have much nostalgia for vintage racing. But I can say whenever I watch some clips of vintage racing for Goodwood. Thank you. It just looks like hilarious good fun to see original Mini Coopers trying to chase down a Mustang on track. It is hilarious fun. So I think for me, the cars that seem to stand out for me would be something like the Datsun 510.
Okay.
A BMW 2002, and I don't even know which Alpha it is. Maybe the old Julieta. I forget, but I know it as soon as I see it. But kind of that era of car, it's a little bit boxier, but with, I don't know, intention about it. I don't think I'll ever own them because I'm sure the amount of time that it takes just for it to see any track time whatsoever is absurd. But
I think GLTC needs a classic Mini. That would be fun.
There was somebody building a 2002.
Oh, that'd be fun.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen many updates on it, so I'm not sure if that's still in progress or not. But we have seen a minivan race an S2000 on track before, and that was good fun.
I'm sure. All right, the one I've been dying. If once we started this, I knew which one I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Which car do you want to switch in that you're currently racing or have raced against in the past, and at what track? And since we're in a GLTC series, let's stay in GLTC.
Okay. I was gonna ask if it'd be the one lap for GLTC. Very different answers.
Yeah, a little bit. We can do both. I mean, we're givers.
Yeah. None of the Miatas, because I have a Miata, and I just know that theirs are faster and driven better than mine. It would either be Andy Smedegaard's S2000, because I've always been curious about what a really well prepped S2000 can do on a racetrack.
Sure.
And the answer is go very fast.
Apparently, yes.
Or I would want to race the Honda manufacturing Odyssey.
Oh, yeah.
Because that thing stops way faster than a vehicle that size has any reason to do. And I think that would be an amazing learning opportunity.
Yeah. You don't expect a brick to be able to stop as fast as that thing can.
No. And not to mention, and getting around that van is hard because it had all the horsepower and could stop. So really hard, really tough.
Yeah. And naturally takes up a lot of space. So you're not much left.
One lap wise would probably be either Andy's McLaren, because again,
It's
McLaren.
Yeah.
Just I'd like the opportunity, or probably Super K,
Okay.
which was probably the other really dumb race car that was taken on the one lap, and they had their fair bit of issues on the trip as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that car is quick, and yeah, I think that'd be a good time.
As long as you're not doing the transits in the Super K, right?
Yeah, they've got it almost worse than we do on transits, and we do not have it good.
No.
we at least have a bit more mileage range, and we've got our HVAC ducted up a little bit better, so it's not actively dumping tons of heat in, but ours passively dump heats in. So
yeah, because race car.
Because race car.
Right. So, what do you think is the weirdest car ever made?
Weirdest? How, or is that up to me?
Like Bill likes to put it as, a car would like to wipe away from history, which I don't think any car really should be.
There's a few.
But yeah, because I find them all kind of fascinating, even in their sick way.
I, for some reason, know this popped up into my mind, and it's got to be my answer, was the quad cab, long bed, automatic version of the Dodge Ram SRT 10. It had the motor out of a Viper,
mm-hmm.
put on the worst automatic transmission God ever created.
Which was?
It's just like a 4-speed automatic with an overdrive.
Okay.
Just a dog dump. And with that weird auto stick thing Chrysler was doing back in the day,
mm-hmm.
into this tank of a truck. And I've driven it, and it's got torque. It just doesn't go anywhere. Like it had but then you get into the short cab, short bed version with the Viper transmission, and that thing will go like a bat out of hell. It's a totally different truck. And that was the truck it was meant to be, not to stuff it in just like some family hauler that some dad needed to like outdo his neighbor in or something like that. Say, yeah, oh, you've got the V10, that's cute. Mine's from the Viper. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that would absolutely be the one that they could have skipped over.
That's a new one for the list. We'll add that.
That had a lot more passion behind it than I was expecting. Like I genuinely don't like that truck.
Oh boy. So everybody can follow you on your podcast, and
Yep.
Apparently social media will be reduced a little bit, but how should they, if they want to follow along with you personally or just listen to the podcast? Is there a way to follow along?
Yeah, podcast. We are at Track Walking Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. You can also find us on the tracktuned.com website. We kind of host stuff there, or any podcast platform. We're on Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, Anchor.
There's a million of them.
Yeah, all of them. We're pretty much everywhere. If you want to follow us, we are Robertson Racing on Instagram. We are Robertson Racing Miata on Facebook. And this year we've started doing single session setup reviews for people, where we learn about their car and we do some hot pyrometer readings on their tires, and we evaluate their session, and we do it for $30. And we have yet to not make somebody go faster for $30. So it seems like a win-win to me. We get a little bit of walking around money, and people get to make their tires wear longer and work better for them. I'm an instructor with Grid Life, so if you're signing up for the beginner program, chances are you might get me or one of our several other fantastic instructors.
Like Bill Griffin.
The man, the man, the myth, always has coffee ready to go in the mornings.
Yes, he does.
But yeah, we're around.
You are. And hopefully we will see you on the track someday soon, as soon as possible. And
That'd be great.
We thank you for coming on, and thank you for submitting to our relentless badgering. And, eventually you all will succumb to my tormenting.
Yeah. Well, thanks for working with my schedule and everything. I appreciate it.
Oh, not a problem, sir. Thank you again for coming on, and you have a great night.
You both too. Good talk to you, Vicky.
Thank you, Scott.